Charles, thank you for joining me for this late night episode. We had some pretty odd internet posts and sound bites from the 47th POTUS that had certain people, including myself, wondering, what have you done with the real Donald Trump? Dun, dun, dun. How are you, Charles?
Great poster and great question. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. It's another beautiful day here in actual paradise, and we had the biggest fly in the ointment yesterday. Was I went down to the pool and there were 3 other people in it.
Huh.
I mean, it could easily accommodate 50. But
I didn't know you use ointment.
No, I know. Actually, we did had 3 workmen here fixing the sliding doors into the kitchen, and that was a bit of a production. At the end of it, none of them really spoke English. The guy comes and said to me, I thought he said, "Do you have any oil?" And I what the hell is he going to do with oil?
And P. Diddy.
No, he wasn't one of those guys. So I tried to find. I thought he said, "Do you have any?" Anyway, I brought him something. Not that. And it finally emerged he was looking for a hairdryer to use on the ceiling to get the plaster dry.
Oil.
So he could paint. I don't know how oil came into it, but we figured it out. And everything, really good repair job done in like 5 hours.
There you go. Good thing you didn't have P. Diddy working on the ceiling. But seriously, Charles, Trump was saying, like, anybody who wants to continue talking about Epstein, is a former supporter, and he doesn't want their support. I mean, he was really going over the top to the extent that I think certain people couldn't believe it. Plus, he told us he was going to end this war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now he's talking about sending more weapons. What the hell is going on with Trump, Charles?
I don't know. It's so easy, for this guy to meander, to put it politely. And there's so many forces arrayed against him. Who are determined to see that he fails. Now, the first thing I think we always need to remember about Trump is, even when he says stuff directly on this True Social post, we can't always be sure, why he was saying what he was saying at a given moment, which I know sounds like accommodating, reaching the extra mile for the guy. But there is, I think, a proven mechanism that, they take something negative and the mainstream press can magnify it. I recall seeing, there was a thing about, I guess it was yesterday, Melania changed Trump's mind on Moscow and this and that, and then Trump suggesting he bomb Moscow, and then just now he said, no, that's not what he meant. That's on, I think, Zero Hedge. So,
but wait a second. How can this be interpreted otherwise? Only stupid people care about the Epstein files. It's pretty direct.
But again, I think what we've been through, we know that for ourselves, you and I have done this. We've gone into at length the William J. Clinton Foundation files and the email files, and we know that the FBI has a system called Sentinel, into which, when you have an investigation, all materials are supposed to be placed. We also know, under Comey, when he was fired, we knew he had certain, but we are told, and I would believe it, because this is the way the Clintons operate, and this is how you would try to protect the Clintons and the Bushes and the Obamas and other people. We are told that Comey took information pertaining to one or more investigations and put it in a special place where only he could access it. That's just guts. They have this domestic operations guide. They probably have an international operations guide, but you don't write a 900-page document like that and keep it updated every few years because you don't have systems. He had systems. He was the head of the freaking FBI. He's investigating. He was leading the investigation into the Clinton Foundation, 2002 to 3, and then as Deputy Attorney General through 5. And then he was leading the investigation into Hillary's emails. And what was he attacking Hillary for? What were people attacking her for? Possibly absconding with government records and maybe monetizing them, making them available. You see this, you can't see it, but there's a nice table that I'm standing next to you here. I was sitting next to, and you're the president of the United States or the Secretary of State. And you're Secretary of State, and you've got a husband who's grifting around the world, and one of his donors wants to figure out what U.S. policy is going to be towards Albania. So you arrange for some numbskull, pretending to work for you, to have the Albania file put into your whatever you use, a briefcase or something like that. You bring it home, you put it on the kitchen table or your own study table, and you say to Bill, I wouldn't go into my study. You never know what you might find there. And he sees the file, and he's able, because he's a smart guy, to figure out which way Obama's leaning on something, and he takes that to, Mumbo Jumbo Jugabuk, or whatever the guy's name is in Albania, and he says, yeah, I'll take that million, and you'll get your information. That's what Comey was supposed to be investigating twice, but now we find out that he has his own trove of information. The Epstein stuff, I mean, it's like that. We're not talking enough about the Anthony Weiner laptop. Jerry Corsi told me at the time that the stuff on that laptop was so sickening and involved such important people that there was this major dust up. The New York City people had it, and the FBI swooped in as the New York City cops were going to make a press announcement about it, and they took all the stuff. What was on Anthony Weiner's laptop? How many emails involving the Clinton Foundation were on it? What was the Weiner insurance policy? We know all that was buried. You could only imagine, they crashed, in theory, Epstein's townhouse. You could only imagine how much information was in that townhouse. It's like a foundation. How many donations did you really get? Right? Let's just tell the government we got 100 million when we got $1 billion. How much evidence was in that townhouse? Who were the people on the scene first to get there? What decisions were made about storing and chain of custody on all that evidence? As a guess, people were really nervous about that evidence, and only the trusted insiders got a chance to try to figure out what was there first. Then a decision gets made. How much do we say we have? How much do we destroy? How much do we put into some remote place where we can blackmail everybody involved? And how much it was altered. Epstein was taken in 19. Is that right?
Yes.
July 7th,
well,
19?
First arrest was, I think, 2007 or 8. But then, yes, when he was put into federal, the right. Manhattan Detention Center, 2019.
So the evidence has been under, Bill Barr's FBI, or Justice Department, rather, and Chris Wray's FBI. And then it was under the super control of the Biden mafia. I would be nervous, frankly, about.
But Charles, even so, everything you're saying is 100%. But isn't it true? Trump didn't come out and say all that. If he had calmly said, "Hey, you know what? I want to see this Epstein information just as much as everybody else. But what we're discovering is it's been hidden, it's been manipulated, it's been destroyed." He's saying all this weird stuff like Epstein. Who's Epstein? What, that loser? Why do you want to talk about that? Anybody who wants to talk about Epstein, I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not defending it. I'm not defending. He's definitely. This is a clear mistake, clear error.
Destroying the base. People hate it.
Well, what are the consequences going to be? That's the question. Now, the polling is coming in very much in favor of people like us, who say we're the rational people, and Trump seems to have lost it here. We should address the Chris Hedges story. I don't know if you had a chance to see that yet, but
before we get to that, there's a bunch of stuff that you've just said that I just want to touch on real quickly, because you're right. That Anthony Weiner laptop is another major, only losers want to talk about that. But the thing is, here's the FBI vault. I didn't even know about this. This vault is filled with, little snippets of things, but this is the FBI communication on discovery of Hillary Clinton emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. I mean, this is 2 pages. It's part 1. It's final, and it's redacted.
But we went over this in depth years ago. This is you read this thing carefully. It says something like, I've decided, because this is so politically sensitive, or something like that in there, basically not to look at it. And James Comey, James Comey, this is the Department of not investigating things, but James Comey lied on this. at the time of this, the laptop came out, and then he gave some kind of press conference or something, and he said, "Our forensic teams have gone through this entire thing and found nothing."
Right.
But of course, they found nothing. Your direction is to look at this and
And
write me a
find
memo
nothing.
saying you found nothing. And
Exactly.
then I want to know the good stuff so I can put it in my locked cabinet.
It was another one of these laptop, what the hell are you talking about? Only losers want to look at that. But while we're on the subject of Comey's getting fired, this just came down. Politico saying Maurene Comey, prosecutor in the Jeffrey Epstein case, is fired. So that's an interesting development, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, again, so I think that I don't actually want to know anything about the sex trafficking part of Jeffrey Epstein's life, but I'd like to know everything about the bribery and blackmailing part. Other than what he was showing or refusing to show to get paid off. But Trump is. You can say many things about Trump, but you can't say he's financially unsophisticated, right? I mean, he's not a mega billionaire because he won the lottery. So he made the mistake in his youth of spending time with Epstein, but he did kick him out of Mar-a-Lago, years before Epstein morphed into the international man of mystery, starting in 2002. So he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago well before then. And Trump is smart enough that, I mean, he knows that he refers to Steven Schwartzman as one of the smartest guys around. That's the co-founder of Blackstone, now the CEO, pushing 80. And Schwartzman is very shrewd. Schwartzman would see through an Epstein in less than a nanosecond, right? I mean, people who are in the category that Epstein claimed to be would have mega brokerage accounts at Goldman. They would be in multiple private equity funds as investors. They would have a real accounting firm working with them, and they wouldn't be flying around Africa with actors in a 727 and Bill Clinton, having left the White House in disgrace. That's not what people like that do. And I mean, you could fool. I mean, you could pretend to be, more active in Hollywood than you actually were, and you'd fool a lot of people, but you wouldn't fool Steven Spielberg's people, and that's what you're dealing with in Schwartzman. You're dealing with somebody who can cut through the shit. And to a lesser extent, I can too. And I call bullshit on the story when I heard he taught at Dalton. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I think another
He's
big part of the Epstein story, Charles, is I agree. It's difficult to approach some of the more, lascivious aspects of it. But the fact that they had this plea deal in 2007 and there's all this mystery with Acosta, and one of Trump's key things was the weaponization of the justice system. So why is it that somebody, again, set aside the lascivious nature of his crimes, the fact is he's been accused of and convicted of and incarcerated for huge amounts of crimes, but yet he's done almost no jail time. And how was that allowed to happen? Why aren't we at least even looking into FBI files related to that? The term Epstein files has been so kind of vaguely manipulated. Right. It's a big problem. He's got to address it.
Yeah, I mean, because the issue here is, as I understand it, and there's an 11-page 302 on me, as a result of meeting with two FBI agents. I've never seen it.
Well, it's mostly redacted. We've seen it with all white all over it.
Right. I'm just saying, it's like, so, I mean, that's crazy. And I mean, the French system, our friend Fabien was explaining, is that when you get interviewed by the Sûreté or whoever it is, and you sit there, there's a transcript, there's a summary of the meeting, and the agents sign it and you sign it. You get to read it. I mean, and the French system is, people claim it's, you're guilty until proven innocent, that it's worse for individuals than ours. On that one, it's much better. But what I'm told is, and it makes sense given, Comey and these other people we're reading about, that when the FBI does an investigation, they can find stuff that is not illegal, but icky or even wrong. Somebody they could talk to somebody who can, say somebody else did all kinds of things, and Then they may or may not try to verify it. And if they do verify it and discover it's wrong, you don't want to have to see all that kind of stuff. So the question is, do we trust the system to give us an honest accounting of what really happened with Epstein? And I certainly don't. And shame on Trump. I mean, you want to reform the justice system, take the obvious places where the justice system has gone wrong and go back in and fix it. Tell me why it was okay in George Floyd Hysteria Day for corporations to claim that they had made billions of dollars of pledges to BLM, but we don't have any BLM records. And the Patrisse Cullors and the other and people are living in mansions. No accountability. You got Act Blue doing the same thing. You got B. Rock's Foundation when he isn't building Easter Island head replicas of himself. He's out there exhorting people to be tougher, i.e., maybe violent, in the guise of a charity, a tax-exempt charity, whose records are all fucked up and has, as at last accounting, almost $1 billion of net assets for what was supposed to be a library. There's so much that needs to be fixing. Why do you want to insult people who have legitimate concerns about the credibility of the FBI on everything, but in particular on Epstein? Not wise.
And the other thing is it now taints kind of everything that he's doing. As they said they have this grand conspiracy investigation coming, and everyone's feeling like, well, wait a minute, are you just saying that now to distract from the Epstein files? I mean, to just the repeat, it's just he is acting so guilty. Unless, like, tomorrow, he's trying to, some people say, 5D chess, he's trying to get the Democrats to demand the release of the Epstein files. But he's already ruined that, because if he's saying that they've been manipulated, getting the Democrats to force it to come out, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make any sense. It really makes him appear guilty the way he's acting.
Yeah. I don't know. Should we talk about the Hedges piece or no?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So Chris Hedges is a former New York Times guy, I think, who's lefty, and independent for a while. Very frequently, I met him on RT in the green room several times, and elsewhere. But he has a piece out that's very negative on Dersh and very negative basically on all the people who have been named so far as people who went to the island or the townhouse. But he includes in there a charge, which at best is hearsay, that an underage girl claimed a while ago, when she was no longer underage, that Trump raped her. And the article claims that the Trump organization somehow paid him off and paid her off to go away, and that's why nobody can get in touch with her. Well, that to me is extremely dishonest reporting, and shame on him, right? I mean, if you can't yourself verify these charges, these allegations, by talking to the person, and it's been years since anyone else has been talking about this, why bring this up now in this way? And I think Hedges is pretty much of a maverick, so I don't know that he was told to do this, or I wouldn't assume that he was told. But having done it, you've now got the Joe Scarboroughs of the world and all those type of people say, "Well, Hedges found this first. Let's bring this shit back up and link in E. Jean Carroll." And now with the horrible E. Jean Carroll precedents, many people are going to come out of the woodwork and make these because they see what happens. Look what she got away with.
Yeah, I mean, this is just George Webb 101, where you make an allegation and somebody else says, well, this guy's making an allegation, and then one person after the next just repeats the allegation,
right?
And half of the people reading it don't even understand what the word allegation means, and they think it's true.
They think they're those animals near Alcatraz down there in Florida, the allegation Alcatraz.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's not at this moment looking great. You can't say. I mean, this is supposed to be the summer where he recharges his batteries. He's out there at Bedminster at the Brady family estate that he bought a portion of, and he's supposed to be, as I say, recharging his batteries. Instead, he's degrading. He's putting acid on his batteries, and we'll have to see what's
What?
next. Now, but interestingly, to fire Comey in the middle, she's in the middle of the case, right? I mean, she's got multiple cases. So to fire her, my understanding is that it's not that easy to fire government officials, and to fire her peremptorily this way tells me they found something, involving her father probably and her. Like father, like
But
daughter.
they aren't people like the New York Times and Chris Hedges and all these losers going to spin this into, obviously Trump is guilty because he's fired. Lefties are going to think that Maurene Comey is the second coming of James Comey, JC.
Well,
and she even looks like him more than ever right here, right? That's James Comey with a wig. Maybe he's just gone trans.
I think it's the third coming. Wasn't she the third? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
anyway, so but remember her, and that there was a guy who was fired at the Southern District of New York. Was he the U.S. attorney or whatever? And he went out with bagpipers.
She was crying.
People were crying. So I know. Many people were crying. I mean, you have this attitude, and you see a little bit of an Andy McCarthy, right? Andy McCarthy. I'm not saying he's crooked, but he's an expert on the process of how the U.S. Southern District doesn't work, right? You ask him what's going on, and he'll always have a reason you couldn't possibly have thought of why it's going to happen this way, not that way. And I asked him point blank at a book signing. I said, why couldn't, if you guys are so great, how come you couldn't see the obvious fraud at the Clinton Foundation? It was like, hemina. He just like was a deer in the headlights.
No answer, obviously. They do call it the Sovereign District of New York.
Right.
And, I mean, this is where Emil Bove came out of. This is, Southern District of New York is where Valerie Caproni is doing all of her wonderful stuff. This is a very corrupt, it's a big problem. So it's an interesting development. I mean.
Well, it's actually, the real corruption, I think, arises, again, if we're going to talk solutions, a solution is the FBI can have nothing to do with security clearances for public officials. Nothing. Because the second you let those people in, and they didn't have power over the president, right? If I want to nominate Jason Goodman, I'm the president, the Secretary of State, the FBI is going to have to do a check. That's got to stop. It's got to be a different organization. And if that different organization abuses the process, the penalties for abusing that process have to be extreme. They have to be like 35 years in prison. You lose all your assets, and it's not a prison where you're going to learn how to play golf or cut the lawn. You're going to be worried about Brutus in the next cell.
Neck tattoos. Charles, there's an interesting thing here, a detail in the New York Times. It says Ms. Comey was informed of her firing in a letter that cited Article 2 of the Constitution, which describes the powers of the president, according to two people. What do you think that means?
Where does that appear? In the New York Times?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm deeply suspicious of the New York Times, having been told by a famous reporter there that the Times is a gigantic organization. Obviously, most of its employees are in the Metro New York area, and staff members of the Times frequently have spouses or partners who are working in the Southern District, the Eastern District, for the governors, et cetera, politicians, et cetera. So it's a leaky sieve. And we've learned that these people believe they can shape every narrative. They can turn fact into fiction and fiction into fact. That's their job. So, I mean, we can't say it's a bad thing that Maurene Comey was fired. We were both pounding the table, asking the question, why is she still working here? And in particular on these cases, what's the odds? What are the odds that she's on the Diddy trial and another trial, isn't she?
Diddy, Epstein.
Yeah, what are the odds of that? Is Boasberg the judge? I mean,
Dale Ho was the. Dale Ho was Eric Adams. Diddy was what's his name? I forget his name. He was the first openly gay judge.
Great.
I forget his name. Oh, no, sorry. No, because Diddy has so many different trials. Diddy had civil cases and criminal cases. We'd have to look it up, but all these judges are doing all kinds of things. Charles, we've hit the end of our run here. We're going to continue this conversation in the First Amendment forum. I hope people will join on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. I think either we're already there or any day now, Odyssey is no longer going to have sponsor-exclusive content for people who were paying with credit cards. They lost their credit card provider because they were being forced by big banks to censor people. And so Odyssey refused to do that censorship. People can choose to get the AR cryptocurrency or otherwise come to one of the other platforms. We're also going to be on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. But there's so much more to discuss about all of this. We'll be right back